Do you have a Syria question?
Yes,
Russia. Okay.
Russia, Turkey.
Yeah. Russia, Turkey.
Yes.
Okay.
Today there was President Putin's presser, and also President Putin was in Ankara just 2 weeks ago. It looks like that these two countries are trying to improve the relationship, and they have some certain goal of trade, number of trade in near future. My question is, what's your view on these two? At the time that West tried to put some sanctions on Russia, do you have any problem with Russia is doing more business with Turkey?
Well, I haven't seen any confirmation of any new trade deals or trade. Obviously, we'd have to take a look at that if that came to fruition, but it seems a little premature for that. In general, we don't believe that any country should be proceeding with business as usual as it relates to Russia, and that certainly is something we've conveyed broadly.
Can you comment on the Crimea sanctions?
Sure. And then we can go to your Russia question if you'd like.
Yeah. I'm guessing it's related.
The United States welcomes the EU's announcement of further sanctions on investment services and trade with Crimea and Sevastopol. The purpose of targeted sanctions is to make clear that there are costs attached to Russia's ongoing violations of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. Crimea is part of Ukraine, and the United States, along with our G7 and EU partners through rounds of sanctions, has made it clear that we condemn Russia's occupation and attempted annexation of Crimea, which we do not and will not recognize.
Are you planning to issue similar sanctions today, tomorrow, very soon?
We continue to explore a range of options to increase the pressure on Russia to change course in Ukraine, including measures aimed specifically at Crimea, but I don't have any specifics or timeline or prediction for you on that front.
You consider these unilateral sanctions or uncoordinated sanctions?
No, we are well aware that but we're going to put out these sanctions. As I mentioned, we continue to consider measures that are specifically targeted at Crimea. I'm just not going to make a prediction of timing.
When the United States held back on sanctions for several weeks in some instances, the argument that was often made was it would be self-defeating to issue unilateral sanctions without them being in concert with European partners.
But Brad, at no point have we issued exactly the same sanctions on the same day as the Europeans. We've coordinated closely, we've worked in lockstep, that's continuing.
So you're saying these are coordinated closely and you're working in lockstep on these?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, also Russia.
Oh, can we
Russia too.
Okay.
Yes. I wondered if you could give a reaction to the comments by President Putin today, which seemed to suggest basically that Moscow feels that these sanctions and the Western pressure is an attempt at regime change.
Well, I think as the Secretary's even conveyed himself, I believe, that certainly is not our objective. The sanctions have been put in place in order to put in place costs for the actions, the aggressive actions of Russia into Ukraine. That we've been clear that that is the sole purpose, is to push Russia to restore Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. We're also prepared to roll back the sanctions if Russia implements its Minsk commitments. President Putin also talked about the economy and the economic situation and acknowledged that it's not solely related to sanctions. It's more complicated and involves other issues. Oil prices and general economic mismanagement in Russia have played a significant role in getting them to this economic point they're at today.
So is he being paranoid in suggesting this? It was something that Foreign Minister Lavrov also suggested a couple of days ago, that you guys were working towards regime change in China.
Well, to be clear, that's not our objective. The objective is, as I've just outlined, which is to push Russia to restore Ukraine's territorial integrity, and we can continue stating that as long as it continues to be brought up. Go ahead.
Can I follow up on that?
Sure.
President Putin was very clear in his press conference that he would be prepared to go in accordance with the Minsk agreements, and he also indicated that he thought that President Poroshenko was also inclined to try and go further with this, but that there are other voices in the administration in Ukraine who really want to make some more gains militarily before they come to any kind of talks.
I don't believe they said, and I watched this, they did not say voices within the administration.
Other voices that
okay, well, there's
were
a
being
difference,
exerted here.
a big difference.
Maybe from the United States. Maybe he meant that, maybe not from Ukraine. I don't know.
I think that's highly speculative and unlikely that's what he meant. But I will say that We have long supported the implementation of the Minsk protocols. There are additional steps that Russia needs to take in order to do that. We have seen reports that they are planning to speak sometime over the next couple of days. President Putin and President Poroshenko, we certainly encourage that and hope that moves forward. But there are specific actions Russia can take that they have not taken, and so the ball really remains in their court in that regard.
Is it the actions of the Russians, or are there actions that have to be taken by the people in eastern Ukraine,
Russian-backed separatists?
which Russia may or may not have full control over?
Well, we think Russia has the power to impact the actions of Russian-backed
Well,
separatists.
Secretary Lavrov, in his comments to a French news agency, is not as outspoken as President Putin generally, but he also was inclined to think that maybe there is another agenda behind this, which is a regime change in Russia.
I think Joe just asked that question.
Coming from somebody like that, doesn't that raise concerns about the impressions that one has widely in Russia and among all sectors of the population with regard to U.S. policy towards the
I think I
present
just
regime?
answered that exact question. Go ahead.
On the same thing. It also
Go
said
ahead.
that the humanitarian aid will continue to be going to eastern Ukraine. What is your position on that? I know that trucks have gone through and so on, and you raised your concern in the past. Is that still the case? Are you still opposed to humanitarian aid going from Russia to eastern
We
Ukraine?
have remaining concerns about labeled humanitarian convoys going across the border where we don't know the content, and it's not always with the approval of the Ukrainian government. If it's with the approval of the Ukrainian government, given it's their country, that's something different. Go ahead.
Subject, AFPAC